still find it hard to believe I survived that night. Every time I close my eyes, I replay the way the orange hazard lights danced off the fresh snow, the muffled crunch of my boots on the white pavement, and the way my heart hammered when those men stepped out of the darkness. I'm sharing this now because maybe, if you ever find yourself alone on a wintry road, you'll remember my mistake, and maybe you'll live to tell your own story. I'd spent the holidays with my family 30 miles north of home. My mom's cooking, my sister's booming laugh, the nostalgia of old photo albums strewn across the coffee table. But come New Year's morning, the day I'd sworn I'd head back, I woke to a winter storm warning blaring on my phone, 3 to 6 inches by the evening. I hesitated at the kitchen table, spoon hovering over my last mouthful of oatmeal, weighing the comfort of a second night against the looming 10-hour drive ahead. Some part of me, a stubborn streak I've carried since childhood, insisted I could beat the weather. It'll be fine, I told myself, forcing down the last bite. By noon, I kissed my mom goodbye, waved at my sister as she loaded snow boots into the back seat, and turned the key in my car. The heater kicked in, steering wheel warm beneath my palms, and I told myself I was making the right call. The first few hours were easy. The highway was busy enough, the snow light and intermittent. I kept the cruise set to 65, the radio tuned to classic rock, and I leaned into the warmth of familiarity. The smell of pine-scented air freshener, the way my playlist carried me from Hotel California to Free Fallin' without interruption. At mile marker 47, I stopped for gas and a coffee refill. The station attendant gave me a polite smile, wrung his wet gloves, and warned, "Roads get slick past Red Creek." I nodded, paid, and didn't slow down. By the time dusk arrived, the sky had folded itself into a bruised purple, and the snow came in heavier, like someone was shaking salt out of an enormous shaker overhead. The highway narrowed. Guardrails were half buried. Headlights glowed in the flurries, but the distance between cars stretched longer, emptier. I passed a tow truck languidly idling by the side road, its amber light spinning lazily, a reminder that not everyone believed this storm was just another inconvenience. Around mile marker 115, the snow was falling so thick I could barely see the dashed lines. My wipers slapped rhythmically, but every swipe felt like wiping away a foggy memory. I was watching the world get rewritten in white. I glanced at the digital clock, 7:48 p.m. My house was still over 3 hours away, assuming I kept moving. My knuckles were white against the steering wheel. My jaw ached from the tension, but something in me refused to stop. I told myself I'd find a rest area soon, maybe a diner where I could get hot soup, but mile after mile, nothing materialized, just frosted trees and the occasional abandoned pickup truck half swallowed by snowdrifts. And then I saw the lights, a pair of amber bulbs blinking on and off, mounted low on the road. At first, I thought they were a fallen road sign or a misaligned reflector, but as I drew closer, I realized they were hazard lights. A car turned sideways, its rear end buried in a bank of snow. It sat like a trapped animal, its doors closed, engine off, windows fogged. My headlights picked out the silhouette of a man leaning into the driver's window. He raised his head as I slowed to a stop 20 feet away, his face pale and drawn. "Hey," he called out. His voice was muffled as though he'd been shouting into a pillow. "Can you help me?" He stepped back and held out a hand. His glove was thin, wet with melting snow. "My car's stuck. I need someone to push." I glanced at my gas gauge, just under half, and the empty stretch of road behind me. There wasn't a soul in sight, not even the tow truck from earlier. My first instinct was to lock the doors and drive on. But then I remembered that once upon a time in driver's ed, they drilled into us that you always help someone in peril. A voice in my head whispered, "What if you were them?" Slowly I unlocked my door. "Sure," I said, stepping out into the cold. The wind snapped at my coat hood, and I inhaled, tasting ice and diesel fumes. My boots sank into the slushy snow as I approached the car. The man straightened, ran a hand through his dark hair, and offered a curt nod. He stood off to the side now, watching me. The car's nose angled into the ditch, front wheels spinning uselessly. I crouched at the rear bumper, bracing my shoulders. "On 3, I said, spotting the rear wheels, which were half buried. 1, 2, 3. I heaved, the cold biting through my gloves, snow spraying up as the tire shifted an inch. He joined me, pressing with his gloved hands, and for a moment we made progress. Then the wheel spun again and the car sank farther. "Shit," he cursed, breathing hard. "It's worse than I thought." He stepped back, wiped snow off his jeans, then turned and peered into the passenger window. I frowned. "You waiting for someone?" I asked. He jerked his head toward the interior. I'm calling for a tow." His phone flashed green inside his coat pocket. But instead of looking at me, he kept staring at the back seat, his brow furrowed. I straightened and studied him in the harsh glow of my headlights. He was tall, narrow-shouldered, with a long face that seemed to stretch when he talked. His coat was too light for the cold, his boots scuffed. There was something off, like he was more interested in who might be back there than who was in front of him. "Everything okay?" I asked, my words muffled by the wind. He snapped his gaze back to me, a brief look of annoyance flickering across his features before he masked it with a polite smile. Yeah, he said. I had someone with me, but they went back to check the engine. I think it's busted." He exhaled in a cloud of steam. "Could use another set of hands." I hesitated. My breath caught in my throat. The instinct to run tugged hard at my spine. But I forced my feet forward again and braced myself at the bumper. "All right," I muttered, exhaling slowly. "On 3, again." Together we heaved, grit in our teeth, snow crunching underfoot until nothing happened. The car didn't budge. I felt panic rise, sharp and sudden. My lungs burned. The man's breath was loud, ragged. I stepped back, wiped my palms on my jeans. "It's not moving." He nodded, ominously quiet now. Maybe we should try pushing from the front?" He turned, walking around the car, his footsteps muffled in the slush. I followed, unease knotting in my stomach. When I reached the driver's side, I froze. The passenger door was open, and a dark shape slouched in the back seat. I couldn't make out a face, only the vague outline of a body hunched, head tipped forward. My chest tightened. I glanced at the man. He looked nervous, glancing back over his shoulder. He gave me a sheepish grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah," he said, voice low. "They're, resting. Don't move." He cleared his throat. "Anyway, front push?" His question hung in the cold air, but I couldn't move. Each breath felt like shards of glass slicing my throat. The darkness behind the windows seemed to pulse, alive. Something about the way that body didn't stir felt unnatural. I swallowed. I think I should call my mom," I said, fumbling for my phone. But my fingers were clumsy with gloves. I dropped it. The phone skidded into a snowdrift, ringing on the pavement. I cursed under my breath, bending to retrieve it. Before I could pick it up, I sensed movement behind me. I straightened and saw 2 more figures emerging from the driver's door. One was broad-shouldered, hunched low, and another trailed behind, slim and tall. They didn't speak. The only sound was the wind and my pulse thundering in my ears. My heart dropped to my stomach. I took a step back. I gotta go," I stammered. The man who'd called for help took a step forward, lips curling into a grin that looked more like a snarl. "Oh," he said softly, "but I thought you didn't mind helping." His voice was eerily calm, almost mocking. Panic flared. I turned and ran toward my car, the snow whipping at my cheeks. One of them lunged, but I slammed the door and twisted the lock. Inside, the heater roared to life. My phone lay on the console. Screen cracked. I yanked it up, but there was no signal, no bars, absolutely nothing. I slammed my foot on the accelerator and peeled away, tires spinning for a heart-stopping second before they caught. The car lurched forward, headlights cutting through the blizzard, illuminating vacant road. I didn't look back, only pressed my head against the headrest, hands clenched white-knuckled on the wheel. Somewhere in that darkness, I think I heard them shout. Maybe I imagined it. All I know is that when I hit the state line, the snow eased off, and I finally found a rusty old diner with neon letters blinking, "Open." I burst through the door, dripping ice and tears, and wrapped my arms around the counter, gasping for breath. The waitress glanced at me, eyebrows raised, but didn't ask questions. She just poured coffee, black, steaming, and slid the mug toward me. I pressed my face into my hands and shook so hard I thought I'd break. I still drive that route sometimes, not at night. I stick to daylight hours now, and I never stop for anyone, not on deserted highways, not when the snow's falling, because I know how easy it is to believe someone needs help, and how fast that belief can become a trap. The police never found the car. They said maybe it slid off in a ditch and was covered later. They took my statement, typed it up, and gave me a bulleted list of safety tips. Stay calm, stay visible, call 911. But they never asked me to describe the third man's face. They didn't seem interested in what I saw, or think I saw, through that fogged window. Maybe they thought I was shaken, unreliable. But I remember the angle of the streetlight when those figures moved. I remember the hiss of their breaths against the window pane. I remember every detail of that sideways car, its dented bumper, the way the hazard lights flickered like a dying heartbeat. They never caught him. I don't even know if it was one car or 5 guys coordinating across different nights. All I know is that when I close my eyes, I still see those headlights shining in the snow, and I still feel the shape of their bodies blocking my escape. I'd like to say I never look back. But every time I pass a stranded vehicle on a snowy road, I catch myself gripping the wheel tighter, willing my foot to move faster. Because I believe now that when people ask for help in the dark, sometimes they're not asking for rescue. They're setting the scene for their own kind of violence. So if you ever find yourself alone under falling snow and you see someone stranded in the ditch, remember this. Good intentions can be powerful, but fear, real primal fear, is stronger. And sometimes the best way to help is not to stop at all.